Yes.
Oh, now you're clear. Okay. So good morning. It's afternoon for me, and it's a little weird. A few days ago, I was there in that room, and it had been my plan to still be there. And now I'm on the other side of the ocean, and I'm still with you online.
I say we're hearing you, Anandini. It's a bit faint, so maybe even either a little closer to the mic or up the volume. But we're hearing you, just a bit faint.
I don't know, is it better like this?
It's good enough.
It was the same last time I was on the big screen.
Oh yes.
Okay, well, I'll endeavor to speak loud.
Okay, Hare Krishna. So we'll say we got the verse here, we're all set.
Okay, so let's start with the invocation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 You're still not hearing me well?
I think it is. Yeah, we're trying to figure it out.
Okay, I can put my headphones, maybe that's better. How is it now? Is there a difference?
Not yet.
Do you notice a difference in the volume?
I hear you clearly.
Okay, Rukmini hears me clearly.
Loud and clear now. Rosa did something.
Okay.
Everything's loud and clear now.
Okay, let's start with the Sanskrit verses. Nata param paramayat bhavata svarupam.
Nata param paramayat bhavata svarupam.
Anandamatram avikalpam avidavarcha.
Anandamatram avikalpam avidavarcha.
Pasyami vishvashritamekam avishvamatman.
Pasyami vishvasvitamekam avishvamatmam.
Bhutendriyatmakamataста upashritosmi.
Bhutendriyatmakamadasa upashritasmi.
Nata param paramayat bhavato svarupam.
Nata param paramayat bhavata svarupam.
Anandamatram avikalpam avidavarja.
Anandamatram avikalpam avidavarcha.
Pasyami vishvashritamekam avishvamatman.
Pasyami vishvasvitamekam avishvamatman.
Bhutendriyatmakamatasta upashritosmi.
Bhutendriyatmakamadasa upashritasmi.
Nata param paramayat bhavata svarupam.
Nata param paramayat bhavata svarupam.
Anandamatram avikalpam avidavarja.
Anandamatram avikalpam avidavarcha.
Pasyami vishvashritamekam avishvamatman.
Pasyami vishvasvitamekam avishvamatman.
Bhutendriyatmakamatasta upashritosmi.
Bhutendriyatmakamadasa upashritasmi.
Would anyone else like to recite the verse?
Nata param paramayat Bhavata Swarupam
Nata Paramparamaya Bhavata Swarupam
Anandamatramavikolpamavidavarcha
Anandamatramavikalpamavidavarcha
Pashyami Vishvasujamekamavisvamatman
Pashyami Vishvasrijamekamavishwamatmam
Utendriyatmakamadasta upashitasmi
Bhutendriyatmakamadasta upashitosmi
Nata param paramaya bhavata svarupam.
Nata Paramparamaya Swarupam
Ananda matram avikalpam avidavarcha.
Anandamatramavikalpamavidavarcha
Ashyami vishvasrijam ekam avishvamatmam.
Pashyami
Pashyami
Vishvasrijamekamavishvamatman
Vishvasrijamekamavishwamatmam
Utendriyatmakamadasra upashritosmi.
Bhutendriyatmakamadasta
Utendriyatmakamadasta
upashitosmi
Nata param paramayat bhavata swavarupam.
Nata Paramparamaya Bhavata Swarupam
Ananda matra avikalpam avidavarcha.
Anandamatramavikalpamavidavarcha
Pashyami vishvasrijamekam avishamatmam.
Pashyami
Vishvasrijamekamavishwamatmam
Vishvasrijamekamavishvamatman
Utendriyatmakamadasta upashritosmi.
Bhutendriyatmakamadasta
Upashritosmi
Nata param paramayad bhavata sarupam.
Nata Paramparamaya Bhavata Swarupam
Ananda matram avikalpam avijavarcha.
Anandamatramavikalpamavidavarcha
Pasyami vishva sarjam ekam vishvatmam.
Pashyami Vishvasrijamekamavishvamatman
Bhutendriya atmakamadastha apashritasmi.
Utendriyatmakamadasta upashritosmi
Upashritosmi.
Anyone online? Okay, so we'll do the word for word. Na,
Na,
do not.
Do not.
Ataparam,
Ataparam,
hereafter.
hereafter.
Parama,
Parama,
O Supreme.
O Supreme.
Yat,
Yat,
that which.
that which.
Bhavata,
Bhavata,
of your lordship.
of your lordship.
Swarupam,
Svarupam,
eternal form.
eternal form.
Anandamatram,
Anandamatram,
impersonal Brahman effulgence.
impersonal Brahman effulgence.
Avikalpam,
Avikalpam,
without changes.
without changes.
Avidavarcha,
Avidavarcha,
without deterioration of potency.
without deterioration of potency.
Pashyami,
Pashyami,
do I see.
do I see.
Vishvasrijam,
Srisajam,
creator of the cosmic manifestation.
creator of the cosmic manifestation.
Ekam,
Ekam,
one without a second.
one without a second.
Avishvam,
Avishvam,
and yet not of matter.
and yet not of matter.
Atman,
Atman,
O Supreme Cause.
O Supreme Cause.
Bhuta,
Bhuta,
body.
body.
Indriya,
Indriya,
senses.
senses.
Atmaka,
Atmaka,
on such identification.
such identification.
Mada,
Mada,
pride.
pride.
Te,
Te,
unto you.
unto you.
Upashrita,
Upashika,
surrendered.
surrendered.
Asmi,
Asmi,
I am.
I am.
O my Lord, I do not see a form superior to your present form of eternal bliss and knowledge. In your impersonal Brahman effulgence in the spiritual sky, there is no occasional change and no deterioration of internal potency. I surrender unto you because whereas I am proud of my material body and senses, your Lordship is the cause of the cosmic manifestation, and yet you are untouched by matter. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 1855, Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tatvata. The Supreme Personality of Godhead can only be partially known, and only by the process of devotional service to the Lord. Lord Brahma became aware that the Supreme Lord Krishna has many, many eternal blissful forms of knowledge. He has described such expansions of the Supreme Lord Govinda in the Brahma Samhita 533 as follows. Advaitam achyutam anadim anantarupam adyam purana purusham navayovanam cha vedeshu durlabham adurlabham atma bhakto Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is non-dual and infallible. He is the original cause of all causes, even though he expands in many, many forms. Although he is the oldest personality, he is never youthful, unaffected by old age. The Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be known by the academic wisdom of the Vedas. One has to approach the devotee of the Lord to understand him. The only way to understand the Lord as he is by devotional service to the Lord, or by approaching the devotee of the Lord who always has the Lord in his heart. By devotional perfection, one can understand that the impersonal Brahmajyoti is only a partial representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, and that the three Purusha expansions in the material creation are his plenary portions. In the spiritual sky of the Brahmajyoti, there is no change of various kalpas or millenniums, and there are no creative activities in the Vaikuntha worlds. The influence of time is conspicuous by its absence. The rays of the transcendental body of the Lord, the unlimited Brahmajyoti, are undeterred by the influence of material energy. In the material world also, the initial creator is the Lord himself. He brings about the creation of Brahma, who becomes the subsequent creator, empowered by the Lord. So let's recite some mantras to invoke auspiciousness, and my prayer is to share in line with what Srila Prabhupada and Shukadev Goswami Srimad Bhagavatam wants to share with us. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananchana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Pada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrachatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanjana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishvabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Pre Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evaja Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Okay. I'm feeling very nervous. As in the last days, I'm experiencing something like a dark night of the soul, a disconnection, and then in between an intense connection to Krishna and to chanting. And so it's quite a roller coaster experience. So I decided to be here and give class in the desire that is soothing also for myself to hear about Krishna. So where we are in Srimad Bhagavatam is we're hearing Lord Brahma, and he just, became aware of himself, and after a long time of tapasya, meditation, he got to see Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu is the form of Krishna that from which all the material forms come from, like all the material world comes from. So from the navel of Mahavishnu grows the lotus flower where Lord Brahma appears. And Lord Brahma went to search, where am I? And he actually saw Mahavishnu lying there in the ocean. And as we were there in Florida giving class, Paramatma and Govinda and myself, we were looking at the form of Mahavishnu, like his beauty, how he is described. And we had a lot of conversations about the form of Krishna. And also in our Bhagavad Gita reading group and reading class, in chapter 12, it's all about the form of the Lord. Arjuna has these doubts, asks like, okay, what is better, that we worship the impersonal feature, or the personal feature? And Krishna says, well, the personal feature is going to bring you more peace and satisfaction and fulfillment and bliss. And earlier on, at the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a verse which goes, Vadanti tattva vidyam tattvam yajnanam avyayam brahmeti paramatmeti Bhagavan iti shabdyate, which says that the absolute truth is realized in three features. So it's realized as Paramatma, as the partial representation of God in the heart of all living entities. As Brahman, that's the effulgence, that's the energy of God, the energy of Krishna, the all-pervading energy. And Bhagavan, the supreme personality of Godhead. So, in a sense, it's like if we go into a country, another country, and we get a sense of how is this country, what's the atmosphere in this country, so that's like the Brahman effulgence, that's the energy of the place, and then we can get some conclusion of, oh, there's certain laws that create, that create this container, and that's Paramatma. And then there's a king of the country, and that's Bhagavan. And the stages of realization are, well, they're described as stages, and yet it's not just stages, it's also like circular. So the Brahman realization is when we realize, okay, there's an all-pervasive energy. There's an energy of love, of unconditional love that pervades everything. It's described as the inner potency of the Lord. So the external potency, that's the material world, that's illusion, that's where suffering and anxiety exists. And then there's the internal potency, which is life force, which is love, which is peaceful, blissful, joyful. It's, in fact, like there's Brahman realization is described as when we realize ourselves as spirit souls. And there's this foundational seminar coming up where we use the analogy of the diamond. The diamond, that's Brahman, that's the quality of Brahman. So when we realize ourselves as clear, as sane, as grounded, as happy, as joyful, as wise, as cherished and steady, as surrendered. These are all qualities of the diamond, and that they are all Brahman qualities. So very soon you'll be in the seminar room, and you'll be supporting others to come closer to that realization of, I am spirit soul and I'm having a human experience. And that human experience can be full of suffering and anxiety and distress and despair. And yet that's the human, that's the conditioned state. This all has a beginning and it has an end. And actually what remains, what doesn't have a beginning and an end, is the joy, the bliss, the connection, the surrender, the devotion. That's everlasting. So we can come to realization of that little by little, and more. And it all goes back to the effulgence of the Lord. It's also called the Brahma Jyoti. The Brahma Jyoti is described as, well, it's a consciousnness. And it is also a geographical place in the universe. It's the effulgence of the spiritual world, of which Vrindavan is like the place where there's the most intimate relationship with God, with Krishna. And then there's an effulgence. And in that effulgence is called the Brahma Jyoti. And in the effulgence there are many planets, Vaikuntha planets. Vaikuntha are planets. Kunta is place of anxiety. And Vai is no, there's no anxiety. So we live in Kunta, in geographically, and also often when we're in, or always when we're in material consciousness, and that's Kunta, that's the place of anxiety and distress. And Vaikuntha is the spiritual, the transcendental consciousness, where there is no anxiety and no stress. And it's described that there's also there's no time. There's no material time. There's no past, present, and future, which causes us to get entangled. Like we have a wonderful experience and we want it to last. And we're sad when it's over and we want to grab onto it. And then there's fear and loss and anxiety. So that's the Brahman feature of the absolute truth. And it's described that we can actually go by meditation techniques, we can go and enter into the Brahmajyoti. It's a place where we don't have a gross body. My understanding is we still have a subtle body, yet that's pervaded by peace and eternity and knowledge and wisdom. And it's quite an attractive place. I think it's attractive to just be in a peaceful state. Like sometimes before falling asleep, there's a moment where I'm no longer like attached to my body and to my fears and my tensions, and I'm also not asleep. I don't know if you know this moment, or sometimes when waking up, I can be in a state where I'm awake and I'm conscious, and yet I'm not identified with any of the painful material stuff in my body. I don't know if that's the Brahman experience, but yeah, that's what comes to me. It's a very peaceful consciousness, and yet it's not eternal. It's not lasting. At one point, I am fully awake or I am fully asleep, and I'm no longer in that consciousness. And also, if we go there geographically as a spirit soul, we go to the Brahmajyoti. We spend some time there, and it's described that at one point the soul gets really dissatisfied. It's not the soul is not completely purified, or the subtle body is not completely purified from material desires. There are still some material desires. And then the soul will get another gross body and continue its journey. So it's not an eternal place. And then there's the Paramatma realization. And that's the aspect of God in our heart that is accompanying us each. Not just us human beings, but every living entity has Paramatma in their heart. And sometimes we describe transformative communication or coaching, creating a space for the other person to hear the highest guidance within, the highest wisdom within. And that highest wisdom, that is Paramatma, it's the divine in a personal form in our heart. There's even a place where there's a description of the size of Paramatma. I think it's 20 centimeters in the center of our chest or something like this. Some far out details. So Paramatma is said to be our best friend, and he hears our desires and then arranges, is like the conductor of an orchestra, giving directions and arranging according to our desires and according to our deserves also. And it's a big exploration for me, journey of discovery, to learn to hear the voice of Paramatma. And I have experiences where I think, oh, it's very clear. And I have experiences where it's not so clear. Just recently, as I was there in Florida, I was suffering from intense fear and anxieties, and I wasn't sleeping. And I was wondering what to do. And I had a clear intuition. I'll pack my bags and I go home with my children. And as I had that decision, my whole body relaxed. I was peaceful. So I decided this is what Paramatma is instructing me to do. And as I got on the plane, I was hit with anxiety again. And since I'm home, I have like a very up and down inner state of calm and grounded. And then again, feeling very ungrounded and doubtful whether that was the right decision. So how do we recognize the voice of Paramatma, the guidance of Paramatma? It's a very alive question, urgent question for me right now. How is he my best friend? If that really was Paramatma guidance, then how come I am feeling so desperate and grieving not to be personally sitting there with you in the room? Yeah, so that's the Paramatma feature. God in our heart who guides us and described as the best friend. And I'm just sharing my personal relationship right now, where I'm not so clear which voice did I follow, and if it was Paramatma, then how come I continue to suffer? And then there's the Bhagavan realization, and Bhagavan is realizing Krishna as the personality from whom everyone comes, all expansions come, everything comes from Krishna. And he's in some ways a mystery, like we can read about him or we can hear about him, and yet to really come to understanding of who is he, we need to take to devotional service. We need to connect with love and with devotion and a mood of service. Actually, Srila Prabhupada in one place describes service not as an activity. When I hear service, I think of activity. What can I do? And Srila Prabhupada describes service as a feeling. It's like wanting to serve. And having that as a state in the heart of I want the well-being of everyone, and I'm ready to act on that heart's desire or heart's feeling to be in devotion and in service. And actually the personal feature, it's the jackpot, maybe, can you say the jackpot? It's where you get all other realizations too. By realizing the Supreme God as a person, we also get Brahman realization and Paramatma realization. It's not separate. And what I remember, and maybe I can be corrected if it's not accurate, if we realize Paramatma, that's realizing the knowledge aspect of God. And Brahman realization is realizing the knowledge aspect and the eternity aspect of God. And Bhagavan realization is realizing the knowledge aspect, the eternity aspect, and also the bliss aspect. So Krishna is described as Satchitananda Vigraha. So here's the personification. Here's the personification of knowledge, eternity, and bliss. And that's in the relationship, in the personal relationships, that's where we actually experience the bliss that nourishes the soul, the bliss that when we're experiencing that, we have no other desire. All other desires are fulfilled or they disappear. And the only way there's Srila Prabhupada often describes that the material life is full of miseries, and I remember feeling very resistant to being told all the time that I'm miserable when I didn't feel miserable. And it's not that I didn't feel miserable. I wasn't aware of my misery. I wasn't ready to experience my misery. And then, yeah, with time, I became aware, wow, there is so much misery. And actually, in recent weeks and months, I'm thinking, is there anything else but misery? There are a few highlights where I feel happy. We went canoeing on Ichitakni River. We went into the springs. There's beautiful sunrise and sunsets if you walk outside of David's house over the field onto the big trees. Rosa introduced me there. There's places of where I experienced happiness, or I experienced happiness coming home and seeing the snow and the sunshine, and yet there's so much misery. There's so much misery. I'm going through this anxieties. Before I came to Florida, I had an infection in my shoulder, and for a month I was like in pain, and there's just so much pain everywhere, so much misery. And yeah, that's why Srila Prabhupada mentions it. It is just a miserable place of suffering as long as I'm identified with my body. And it's a helpful information for me to, I'm identifying with my body. Subtle body, thoughts, feelings, or my gross body. And that brings relief. Knowing, I am not all that suffering. I am actually spirit soul, and I am experiencing that because I am in a material body, I'm in a human body. And Srila Prabhupada describes it's actually it's only misery. Conditioned life is only misery. And if we don't experience it as misery, if we think we're happy, that's thanks to Maya. We can say thank you to Maya. She's covering our consciousness so that we don't feel the suffering. So either we're happy because Maya is at work, or we're happy because we're in true transcendental consciousness. And there's one way, and Jesus says there is one way, and the way is through me, through him as Jesus, which is a sentence I was often disturbed by, and I think it's misunderstood often as Jesus is the only way to God. And it's what Krishna and Srila Prabhupada also tell us, actually. The only way to God, to devotional service, is through the spiritual master. So Jesus, Lord Jesus Christ, he's the spiritual master. So way to God is to follow Lord Jesus Christ. And there's Srila Prabhupada, he's the spiritual master, and to come to devotional service. We come to devotional service through him. It's by getting in contact, by surrendering to Krishna, or by getting in contact with someone who actually loves Krishna purely, who has fully understood who Krishna is, who God as a personality, as a person is. That's the only way we can get out of the misery. And that's something I've been experiencing a lot of resistance to in the last days, weeks. Like, I just want to enjoy, I just want to have fun. And somehow there's not so much fun. And the fun comes through the austerity of service, of devotional service. So to come to the actual happiness, not the happiness that Maya convinces us about, but the happiness of the soul, the joy of the soul. We need to dig deeper. We need to come to realization. I am not this body. and not just I am not this body, to come to realization. Well, and if I'm not this body, who am I as a spirit soul? Who am I as a diamond? And what do I actually do? How do I relate to God? How do I relate to Krishna? How do I relate to all the living entities? And then that is true joy, that is true sanity. So Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam are full of descriptions. So by hearing about the Supreme, about Bhagavan, about the absolute truth from a pure devotee, we can actually come to realization. Hearing and chanting, they are the two most important items to come to realization. So we have ample opportunities in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. You have them before you beneath the altar. All these blue books and all the golden books are full of descriptions where we can get to know the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In his many different forms. So Srila Prabhupada describes how Lord Brahma, he realized, oh, Krishna has so many forms. And he himself, he sees Krishna as Mahavishnu. He also sees Krishna as Govinda. And it's there in the purport, how he sees Govinda. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is non-dual and infallible. He is the original cause of all causes, even though he expands in many, many forms. Although he is the oldest personality, he is ever youthful, unaffected by old age. The Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be known by the academic wisdom of the Vedas. One has to approach the devotee of the Lord to understand him. And then in the morning, just before we started this second part of the morning, or at the beginning of the second part of the morning program, we sing Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami, and it's and the two verses, which are just two verses of I think it's 56 verses of one chapter of Brahma Samhita. And as far as I'm aware, that's the only chapter of Brahma Samhita that's revealed to us. It was found by Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya made sure it becomes available to us. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna in the form of his devotee, who appeared 500 years ago and started the chanting, the congregational chanting of the holy name of the Mahamantra. And so we sing Venum Kvanantam Aravindadalaya Taksham Parhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Visheshashubham Govindam Adipurusham Tammaham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept at playing on his flute, whose eyes are blooming like the lotus petal, whose head is bedecked with peacock feathers, whose beauty is tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and whose unique loveliness charms millions of cupids. And then the other verse that we sing is Angani asya sakalendriya vritti manti Pashyanti panti kalyanti jiram jaganti Ananda Jinmaya Sadhu Jvala Vigrasya Govindam Adipurusham Tammaham Bhajami, which translates into I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of that transcendental figure possesses in himself the full-fledged functions of all the organs, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane. So they are very far out descriptions, and sometimes I think whoa, what to do with these descriptions? And my mind, no, for my mind, it can be like really far out. And then it has a soothing effect on my heart when I hear this. When I listen with my heart, I just feel a softening and a soothing and an opening. And then there's many other places we could go to hear about Krishna. We can go to Chaitanya Charitamrita, actually. It's you know the activities of a, a, a person with a purified heart, full of unconditional love. Their dealings with us is the same as how Krishna deals with us. And so we can get some glimpse, some understanding. If you think of a person who's very loving and empathic, and you feel like warm and welcomed and accepted and loved in their presence, that's an insight, an experience, a drop of what it's like to be in the presence of God, to be in the presence of Krishna. And Lord Chaitanya, he appears as, well, he's Lord Krishna, and he appears in the form of a devotee to actually demonstrate what a devotee does, what a spirit soul does, that is in full realization of Paramatma, Brahman, and Bhagavan. And we can read the stories. It's there in the golden books under the altar, or in the altar. That's Lord Chaitanya, and yeah, how he deals with his devotees, and it's so full of love and sweetness, how he takes care of each of his friends very personally and with so much love and care. We can read about conversations with Srila Prabhupada, or hear, and we can get some glimpse of that unconditional love. And I will say daringly that in a foundational seminar, and in advanced seminar, when the participants connect with their heart more and more and their diamond core qualities, then yeah, it becomes such a blissful association. And that's what we're all looking for. I'm assuming this is true for everyone here. We're looking for this warm, loving surrounding. We can look at the example of Krishna to Arjuna. So the unconditional love, it's not always just pink and fluffy and appears like very gentle and soft. And I mean, it is, and at the same time, Krishna is very straightforward to Arjuna and challenges him and says like get up and fight. Take responsibility, get up and fight, fulfill your duty, do it in remembrance of me, and then I will. No, I'm here and I'm protecting you. I'm guiding you. Yeah. So as I'm sharing, I think I'm sharing my own desire to be in this surrounding, and I'm intensely feeling the pain and the loneliness of not being in association. But it's a bit scary. It's a bit scary to be in this place. There is one point which I find very curious, and I don't have anything to say about, is the Brahma, in the verse, the Brahma is proud of the material body and senses. What does that mean? And I'm guessing there's a key in that pride, being proud of material body and senses. Well, a key in understanding what it means to come to a place of surrender. So I'm going to stop here. I'll read the verse again, and then I'm eager to hear from you. O my Lord, I do not see a form superior to your present form of eternal bliss and knowledge. In your impersonal Brahman effulgence in the spiritual sky, there is no occasional change and no deterioration of internal potency. I surrender unto you because whereas I am proud of my material body and senses, your Lordship is the cause of the cosmic manifestation, and yet you are untouched by matter. Hare Krishna. Any questions, comments, realizations?
Thank you for class, Anandini. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I just put my volume up. Thank you. Yes,
Okay.
Valerie.
I like the point that you made about Satchitananda and how Brahma is Sat, eternity, and then Paramatma is realization of knowledge and eternity, and then Bhagavan is the realization of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. And I've heard of our souls as Satchitananda as well. So I'm curious about what's the distinction, and what does Vigraha mean?
Thank you. Okay. Well, my understanding is that we're made of the same material as God, as Krishna. We have almost all the qualities that Krishna has, and they are all embedded in bliss, eternity, and knowledge. And Vigraha is the form. So Krishna is the personification of all these qualities.
The part and parcel. And part and parcel.
Yes. Yeah, like we're a spark of the big fire.
I appreciate the conversation and that you went there at Anandini about Brahman being the Sat, eternity, and the Paramatma, eternity, knowledge, the Bhagavan realization, eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Because just yesterday before Japa, Valerie, you were here. We just happened to read the invocation verse from Srimad Bhagavat, invocation verse from Sri Ishopanishad. Om Purnam Padaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachite Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vashishite. How everything's complete and perfect. And in the purport, Prabhupada discusses that. So interesting, Anandini went there today. And yeah, consistent with what Anandini expressed. Yes, my state is like, so we are made of such Chidananda. We are made of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. And then that unfolds and gets uncovered and emerges from what was dormant, to the extent that we have Brahman realization of, oh, I'm eternal, I'm deathless. Paramatma realization, and then full knowledge of self and super self, and then Bhagavan realization. Then the full bliss of personal relating spiritually. In Brahman realization, we can say there's bliss, and it's more the bliss of the relief from the material misery. That's like, whew, what a relief. And then the Vigraha, that's the form that we are, our original nature is eternally full of bliss and knowledge, and in spiritual form. We are a spiritual form, just like we are blissful. We are conscious, we are consciousness, and our spiritual form, that's the Vigraha. And Krishna's Krishna it's a Vigraha. There's the Vigraha of Shyamasundar. There's the Vigraha of Ramachandra. So Vigraha means form, personality, and that our spiritual form gets uncovered too as we engage our senses and mind in bhakti. Then gradually our spiritual form gets revealed. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
I also wanted to say something about Brahma realization, because Ezra and I were talking to Mother Malini about this when we were in Italy. We had a lot of questions about Brahma realization, like what happens if we're following that path and then we become part of the Brahma Yogti, we merge into oneness with God. I forget what our questions were, but what I learned from that conversation is that when we merge with the Brahma Yogti, we're like, we become the effulgence. Like how I see it is like we're a particle. We're like a particle or an atom of the light, of the effulgence of the spiritual world. And we're just kind of like floating around in that. And because the dharma of the soul is activity, like it's natural, like it's our dharma to be active. When we're in that place of oneness, it starts to, I don't know, get boring or disengaging, or we start to then desire more because it's not satisfying to not be active. And so Mother Malini was saying that, oftentimes people come back down, they fall down from that because it's not the ultimate goal. And sometimes people go up and they enter into Vaikuntha, but it's very rare. And so that was helpful. That was helpful for me because I'm also very attracted to the Brahma Yogti too. I like that you're sharing, like we can also, it's like, I don't know what you were saying. If it's a consciousness, so we can enter into that through meditation. So it's not just like what happens after we leave this body, but we can also enter into that in meditation.
Thank you for that, Valerie. Yeah, it's like there seems to be nothing absolute in the way how we can get into the personal association of Krishna. So that's my understanding. For many, going into Brahma Jyoti, there is like, after that comes another cycle in the material conditioned state, and yet it's not like for everyone, it's not absolute. Some as you from what you're sharing, some actually go to the personal association. And I'm remembered of Shukadev Goswami, who speaks or one of the speakers of Srimad Bhagavatam. He was impersonally realized. He was fully, peaceful and conscious of being a spirit soul, and he had no realization of Krishna. And when he heard about Krishna, he was attracted. He wasn't attracted to anything. He wasn't even attracted to the most beautiful women, but he was attracted to Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, there's a lot there. Yeah, because we speak about like merging in the Brahmic Yogti, and as you indicated, Valerie, it's not necessarily, not like necessarily when the soul leaves the body. The meditator could have that realization that I'm not this body. It's all one, and there's a truth to it's all one. At the same time, merging is actually not an accurate description.
Right.
It's illusory. Mm-hmm. Just like we can say, there's the sunlight, but actually it's composed of different photons. Or we can say the ocean, it's all merged, but there's individual drops who always retain their identity. An example given in the Vedas is like if a green bird flies into a green tree, the bird has merged into the tree. We don't see the bird, but actually the bird is retaining its individual identity. It's appearing merged. Merging is an illusion. And there's a verse referenced a lot in the Bhagavatam related to the conversation about because the nature of the self, Prabhupada discusses this a lot, is to be active. We just emphasized this yesterday in PPTC course. We can't just be. The nature of being is to do, is to be active, to serve, to act, to relate, to sing, to dance. Like adventure and all of that. And so even so in that merging, even though there's a wonderful relief from material misery and material illusion, as you indicated, in a sense it gets boring. It's described in the Bhagavatam, Ye ne ravindakshavi mukti maninas vayasta bhava avishuddha buddhayo aruya kritrina padam patam tata patantya donadrita yushmadan graya. Which means that then, if that so-called merged spirit soul in the oneness doesn't have a taste for service to God, then at some point the soul will come back down to the material sphere to do some service, and maybe at first in sattva-gun, because that's our nature. An example given: an object floating, and you use the term floating appropriately, an object floating in space, floating. But at some point, the gravitational pull of some planet's going to pull it, and so it's going to come. And so again, if the soul doesn't have a taste for, call it the Vaikuntha, the spiritual planets, Goloka Vrindavan, and spiritual service to God, then some material planet will pull it, because the floating is at best a temporary condition. Anandini, yeah, you mentioned it's relatively rare, but it's an example. Shukadeva Goswami, the prime speaker of Bhagavatam, completely impersonally realized, and when he had completely pure heart, there was no tinge of envy. So then when he heard Bhagavatam, then he embraced devotional service to Krishna, to the point where at the age of 16 years old, he became the prime speaker of Bhagavatam. Another example is the four Kumaras described in the third canto, for example, third canto, chapter 15. They were also impersonally realized, Brahmagyoti, and one fine day they went to Vaikuntha, and they got a whiff of the fragrance of the tulasi flowers offered to the feet of Vishnu, and then they transformed into pure bhaktas. But more commonly, those who are apparently impersonally realized, because they might have some tinge of envy to Krishna, because then they'll come back down to the material sphere. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Anandini, for class. I'm experiencing it as very grave and deep, and I'm really connecting with what you're expressing around suffering. If I'm not suffering, that means I'm just hiding from it, unless I've transcended it. And right now I am actually experiencing grief, and it started even before class, just after japa. Somehow the grief of joy, now that's turned into grief of loss. And strangely, talking about Brahma Jyoti, Kurt Cobain, the singer of Nirvana, so Nirvana is Brahma Jyoti, and Nirvana rock band, and he sang, there's a comfort in being sad, and I'm experiencing this right now, and I don't know if the people in the room can hear, but somehow I didn't consciously create it, but behind us there is kirtan going on. That's coming from my phone. It's body kirtan. And it's a little bit of magic. Thank you for coming and giving class.
Thank you, Sylvan, for sharing your experience of grief connected with joy and grief connected with loss. And yeah, you can relate and see in your life that there's so much like misery and despair, and when you're not experiencing it, you're running away from it, hiding away from it, and maybe sometimes a glimpse of the spiritual joy. And right now on your phone there's some kirtan, which seems like you didn't put on, but it's there.
Kirtan led by your body.
As it happens.
Kirtan.
As chance would have it.
Thank you for sharing, and I hear your grief, and I'm experiencing quite some pain of not actually being there, a pain that is very difficult to bear.
I'll just fill in in case everyone didn't catch it. 1 year ago this month, Anandini and Sylvan were buddies in the advanced course. So just in case everyone didn't get that. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, very special relationship, and and this was an opportunity to spend some time together. And we can still spend some time together.
We
Yes,
are spending
right
time.
now. We are spending time right now. Yes. Any other sharings, questions, experiences?
I'd love to hear you answer this question, dear Govinda, that Anandini brought, which is when I'm listening to Paramatma and I'm following Paramatma, why do I still experience anxiety and suffering? It's a great question.
The question, if I'm listening to Paramatma and following, if I could say if as far as like an abstract discussion, but I could share from whatever little personal experience I may have. Yet to whatever degree I'm actually connected with and following Paramatma, I'm not experiencing anxiety. I'm not experiencing anxiety. I'm not experiencing any material Gwenji stuff, to use, Satvatook terminology. So now that doesn't mean like I'm smiling and cheerful all the time. Because in genuine spiritual life, there's the whole range of emotion, much greater with much more variety and vibrancy than material emotion. All our material emotion, as dramatic as it may be, it's really just a dull reflection of spiritual grief, spiritual sadness, spiritual joy, spiritual affection, spiritual envy, spiritual shame, and of course spiritual envy. That's like a devotee of Krishna Goloka Vrindavan might be so-called envious, but material envy, like I'm going to try to pull you down and crush you. And spiritual envy is just like, okay, I'm going to use that as an impetus for deeper inspiration to be more enthusiastic in my service and more selfless in my service to Krishna and Krishna's devotees. So there's the whole range of spiritual emotion, and then at the same time, so like I'll maybe you've heard me say it, like when I started consuming prasadam in 1980. Started chanting japa in 1983, just when I was backpacking around Europe. Actually, is when I started chanting japa. And yeah, like I didn't have any gradual process in that. I went from 0 to 16 rounds per day. I know many, it's just like, so 1 round per day per month, increase 1 per month, whatever. I was like just thousands of places of prasadam, and then when I was away from my false ego environment in Pennsylvania, then I had enough, and then I didn't need courage to like, explain to people, what are you doing, David? So I was afraid of that. So when I was gone and no one knew me in Europe, then I started chanting Hare Krishna 16 rounds per day. So yeah, so that's for these, well over 40 years. Yeah, whenever Krishna consciousness is always blissful and joyful. Are you saying, Dear Govindadas, you've always been blissful and joyful? No, not saying that at all. Just what I've experienced plenty of dark night of the soul, and grieving, and shame, and embarrassment, and anxiety, and intense anxiety, past, present. And so as far as material anxiety, yeah, when I'm truly aligned with my service, I'm not experiencing it. And those many, many times when I'm not aligned with my service, and I'm deviating and being whimsical and frivolous, and I'm indulging in sense gratification and indulging in being right and all of that. Okay, then I experience the material anxiety when I waste time apart from a vyarta kalatvam, a devotional soul doesn't want to waste a moment outside of service to God. And so when I'm wasting time, because I just want a relief from the pain, I want to avoid the pain, but then I come back, and then I'm in anxiety because, oh no, I have even more to do. So the material anxiety I experience is when I'm not aligned with Super Soul, when I'm not aligned with my devotional service. And then, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's there on, if we look at the Srila Prabhupada's Murti on the altar, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is to his left. He said, he's talking to Krishna, and he says, anxieties undertaken in your service, I regard as the source of my greatest ecstasy. So that's spiritual anxiety. Right? So you're hosting and organizing a program this evening with dozens of people coming to your home in person and more online. So my guess is, because I'm like a mystic, you're experiencing some anxiety. That's just my
The fact that I emailed David like 3 times last night probably has nothing to do with that.
Right. So that's it, and that's it. It's like anxiety because I want everyone to have a devotional experience. I want everyone to have a devotional experience. The prasadam, the arrangements, the class, the timing, the kirtan. We never have a devotional. So this is anxiety for Krishna, and that's permeated by spiritual bliss, actually. Hare Krishna.
So we can have a Paramatma, we can hear Paramatma, and then maybe then we're not in anxiety. We're in alignment. We listen to that. We're not in anxiety, but then maybe we can become disconnected after that, and that's
We
when
can,
anxiety
and
comes.
unfortunately, I usually do.
Yeah. Okay.
And then that's the material anxiety.
That's
And hearing from Paramatma, then because in one sense, this Sankirtan movement is about accepting the burden of anxiety to relieve Srila Prabhupada's anxiety, that everyone becomes spiritually happy. It's like, how can I relieve? And let me host a program. Let me write this article. Let me offer prasad. Yeah, how can I accept responsibility for Bhaktivinoda's movement for sure? And then that's spiritual anxiety, and then that's a different quality of emotion altogether.
Can I share something related? Anandini, thank you so much for class. I'm getting a lot from your sharing and from the sharing here, and I've been experiencing a lot of grief. My buddy, been listening to our recordings and said that he gets me in every moment being in grief and how I speak. What I'm trying to say is...
Oh, sure. Rose's buddy is Ritik.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jai Krishna. Losing myself a little bit.
Experiencing a lot of grief, and then your buddy gave you feedback whenever he hears you. It's just this lamentation and grief.
Yes. So Anandini, what came to me when you were speaking about to the extent that we're aware or conscious, then we realize that everything here is suffering. It made me think, I'm fairly certain it's Srila Prabhupada's lecture on chapter 2, verses 62 to 72, and I was hyper-focused on this not too long ago because in it he talks about tapasya, and he talks about eating, sleeping, mating, and fearing, and what I interpreted from his lecture was that the tapasya for fearing is tolerance. And so when you describe, or anyone describes that terrible feeling that can come up where I'm just like, I'm so uncomfortable and I am suffering and miserable and what is happening? My most recent experience, or at least this is what I'm holding on to as like the lifeline to take me through the ocean, is I believe I have something that I'm attached to and I'm refusing to let go. And Paramatma is guiding me and I'm just like, no, it's mine. I get to keep it. And it's causing me so much pain. To the extent that I'm willing to listen and let go to these willful things, I can experience relief. And that relief isn't bliss from not understanding. It's we can see the misery and we can see the suffering, but we can choose bliss and we can choose peace and we can choose joy. It's not for being unaware of it. It's that we can use our minute will to apply ourselves in such a way. And that's what's coming to me. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Rosa, for sharing. Yeah, like, so you're looking at, your own grief and process of grief and being in miserable places. And there's one aspect of, like tolerance, practicing the muscle of tolerance to tolerate the grief, the pain. And then also what you're referring to is what I understand as the quantum jump. It's when Krishna says to Arjuna, be transcendental, to choose bliss and joy and well, clarity. You said something else, I'm not remembering. Peace, bliss, and joy, I think is what you said. Yeah, to choose that. And not wallow in the ocean of misery.
It's really hard when you're experiencing all of that to not identify with, like, if I'm suffering so much, then something's wrong, right? Like, I'm doing something wrong. But it's not true. It's not true.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not true that we made a mistake and therefore we're suffering. It's in that one lecture I heard by Srila Prabhupada, he says, like we all get our quantum of suffering and of happiness, like when we're born, and then we're going to experience suffering, pain, and happiness, pleasure. It's like that's just going to come and go, and we get to learn to to respond to it more and more from a sattvic or transcendental place. And it's, yeah, it can be hard. It can take like full commitment, like every moment making the choice again of I'm joyful, I'm choosing joy, I'm choosing peace.
I'm also getting some realization that to the extent that I'm enthusiastically, joyfully in the world, I might be very deluded, right? Because I'm not always aware of the suffering, and willfully blind to it. So to have a sober presence where you have the awareness and choose it rather than like the self-delusion of just like happy, happy, joy, joy.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it can be like overwhelming to just see the suffering and the despair and not be connected to the, well, to the upliftment. Thank you, Rosa. Anything else? Any other comments or questions? Okay, I'll read the verse again. O my Lord, I do not see a form superior to your present form of eternal bliss and knowledge. In your impersonal Brahman effulgence in the spiritual sky, there is no occasional change and no deterioration of internal potency. I surrender unto you because whereas I am proud of my material body and senses, your Lordship is the cause of the cosmic manifestation, and yet you are untouched by matter. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Anandini. Haribo.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Haribo. Hare Krishna.